It's not often I say positive things about Victor, but I think I'm going to today as we look at chapter 20. For once, we could argue that Victor is concerned with something other than his own ambitions and self-preservation. In this chapter, he is horrified at the prospect that his new creation, a female mate that he's agreed to make for the monster, could end up being more demonic, more brutal, more destructive than Monster Mark I. He says, "I was now about to form another being of whose dispositions I was alike ignorant. She might become 10,000 times more malignant than her mate, and delight for its own sake in murder and wretchedness." Look at the hyperbolic language here, the exaggeration for effect, 10,000 times more. Look at the alliteration with the M's. Look at the interrogative, which shows that he's starting to question, to challenge, to reassess his decision to create a female monster when he says, "Had I right for my own benefit to inflict this curse upon everlasting generations?" So, is Victor finally deciding to do something out of a genuine sense of moral goodness? Or, well, maybe. Maybe, though, on some deeper psychological level, the idea of bringing a female to life is just too much for him. In a novel where almost all the women end up as victims, dead or silent, it's not that surprising here to encounter another passive feminine figure. She doesn't even get to come to life or take a single breath before Victor tore to pieces her body. Think about the moments where Victor is confronted with women. Let's take the night of the monster's creation, for example, back in chapter 5. As Victor sleeps, he has an amazing dream of his fiancée, Elizabeth, walking through the streets of Ingolstadt. It's romantic and verging on the passionate as he embraces her and kisses her, but as his lips touch hers, she turns into the corpse of his dead mother. On his wedding night, of course, there's dramatic irony in that we'll realise that the monster's threat, "I shall be with you on your wedding night," means that Elizabeth is in danger, not Victor, but Victor immediately interpreted as him that the monster is after. There are supposedly plausible explanations for all of these actions, of course, but a psychoanalytical reading of the novel would suggest that a man who dreams of his girlfriend turning into a corpse, rips apart a female body in his makeshift laboratory, and abandons his wife to a monster on her wedding night might have some kind of fear or anxiety when it comes to sexually consummating his marriage. The confrontation between the monster and Victor in this chapter is, as you'd expect, a pretty intense and emotive one, as we've got used to within the novel. The language the monster uses is fascinating and really shows how their relationship has shifted since the early chapters. Think how he was like a dependent baby almost when he was first created, and then capable of love and devotion and loyalty. But now it's all about power, control, and authority. Look at how the monster addresses Victor, calling him his slave. His words are packed with threats, contrasts, and imperatives when he says, "I can make you so wretched that the light of day will be hateful to you. You are my creator, and I am your master. Obey." Things are certainly getting worse for Victor, aren't they? In fact, once again, Shelley draws out similarities between the monster and Victor. Remember, we've said in the past that they're doubles or parallel characters. Well, think about how isolated and excluded the monster became when he was set free into the world. Think of the suspicion, the hostility, and injustice that he experienced at the hands of strangers. Then look at Victor's arrival in this chapter in Ireland. His boat coming ashore kind of gives Victor a taste of what the monster must have experienced. Shelley clearly draws parallels between the characters here to show us Victor going through the kind of torment that his creation went through when he abandoned him and let him loose into the world. Okay, so not so many missiles being thrown at him or shrieks of horror when he washes up on Irish shores and is confronted with a bunch of onlookers inclined to blame him for the dead body they've just discovered. He encounters a hoarse voice, a rude answer to his questions. He gets called a villain and senses their anger, which alarms him. The chapter then ends with a little meta-narrative comment, a kind of break out of the narrative to remind us that the whole thing is being told to Robert Walton. It's a reminder of the framed or embedded narrative structure, when Victor says, "I must pause here, for it requires all my fortitude to recall the memory of the frightful events which I am about to relate." It acts as a kind of hook, of course, to lure us in, to anticipating whatever horror the subsequent chapters hold in store for us, preparing us for something significant.